Welcome back, and today we're going to go back to the towers and work out how we cheaply stock them with plants. Now, in my last video we talked about these easy plug hydroponic grow cubes, which are essentially cocoa pith molded into the shape, and we just put them into the tower and directly sowed the seeds, and we're on our way. Now that's great for the home garden, but I have heaps of these towers. I actually have 10 of these towers. So if I kept using these sort of cubes at like 20 cents Aussie, they would cost me a fair bit. So how do I have a cheaper option? Well, today I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you how to make seedlings using cheap components, using these trays to basically grow lettuces or leafy greens or herbs, which are essentially ready to just sow directly into the tower. This is a really cost-effective way to produce food at scale. So let's get right into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make some seed raising mix, and I'm going to show you the recipe. My seed raising mix is 70% of this fine cocoa husk pith that I buy in bulk, but you can buy that from your local hardware, and that will be, you know, come in smaller 5 litre or 10 litre bags. And then I use some fine perlite, which is expanded volcanic glass. This perlite here is the fine variety. Again, you can buy that in small bags. You mix all of that together, and that gives me a really nice seed raising mix that I can use. And so over here, what I've done is I've actually got it here. I'll just show you. I've got a larger container of it here because I'm doing it in bulk. And so here's the mix here, and you can see that's the sort of consistency. And once it's that consistency, now I'm ready to fill my trays. So for the trays, I use these reusable trays. So they can be used probably up to 10 years if you look after them. Keep them out of the sun when you're not using them. These trays are designed to encourage the root system to grow within the cell, and they've got a very wide hole at the bottom, so they're easy to pop out. And so to fill the tray, I simply just throw the mix on top, and then eventually it starts catching, and I keep doing that until my tray is completely full. By doing this, it's very loose. The medium's extremely loose, and that encourages the roots really to grow quite quickly and develop a nice strong root system. And so what I'll do is I'll actually just smooth that over. I won't push it or pack it down too much, because by doing that, what we're doing is we're suffocating the roots and not giving them as much air as they potentially would like. So that's now ready for sowing. So now we're going to sow the seeds. So we're sowing a mixture of lettuces here, some cosses, some frizzy green lettuces, some butter lettuces, a little like those behind me here. And one thing you'll notice with these seeds is, if you have a look at these, they're actually pelletized seeds. So these are Rick's Wine seeds, so they're probably the best seeds in the world if you ask me. But they're pelletized, they're coated in clay, and so that's one lettuce per each of those pills. And that makes it nice and easy for me to sow and get exactly one seed. I just sit them on top of the cell there. So I've got one there, and you can, to do it a bit faster, you can probably just do it like that. Drop them in. I'm sitting right in the middle, right at the top, okay? That's 144 cells that we have here, and we're going to just seed them all up with exactly one seed per cell. So now the last step, which is I get this fine vermiculite. You can again buy this in small quantities from hardware store or nursery store. I buy it in very large bags for about $40 for 100 litres. So it's very, very cost effective. And you just evenly distribute that fine vermiculite over the tray. You'll notice that the seeds aren't buried. The seeds are literally just sitting on top of that cocoa peat mix. And I'm literally using the vermiculite as a way of really covering them and keeping those pills moist. Because they are activated seeds, which have been, if you like, pre-treated to start growing and also covered in that clay ball, that makes them very, very amenable to sprout. And once that little clay ball opens up, they will grow into seedlings very efficiently. So I expect a germination rate close to 100%. Again, good quality seeds is critical, and I really do stand by Rick's Wine. I think they have the best genetics and the best varieties of seeds. So once we've done that, then what we want to do is give it a really good watering in. Because that was a dry mix, and because it's cocoa peat, it's really hard to get wet. So what we're going to do is we're going to water it, and I like to start away from the tray to get the flow going. And then here I've got a 8-litre watering can, which is about 2 gallons in the US. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to successively and evenly distribute water. I do not want water to pool on the tray. If it pools on the tray, that's going to just dislodge my vermiculite, and it's going to dislodge the seed itself. So I'm just letting it sink in, and then I'm starting a nice steady stream again. It's really, really important that I have an even covering. I drench this, but I do not displace the either the seed or the vermiculite. So now I've got a nice watered in tray. What I didn't mention, which is super important, is that that water had absolutely no fertilizer in it, no nutrient in it, okay? We want to just use water until they sprout. Once they sprout, then we'll start feeding them. I know that this tray is properly watered in by the weight. It's a good weight, so I know that it's saturated with water. So now we're ready to put it in our growing area. I'll just leave that there. Once that sprouts, I'm going to start feeding it, and I'll feed it with a half strength nutrient, and then I'll keep nursing it until it's the right size. So this tray here is probably around about a week old, and you can see that every single cell is pretty much populated with a new lettuce seedling. This is after a couple of weeks here, and this is after 3 weeks. Now, I'll tell you the sort of size that I like to keep them to for planting is around this size. When they're around this size, you've got a nice, strong, healthy lettuce, and that's perfect for going into the tower. You can see we've got a good bundling of the roots around the medium, and so when I stick this in the tower, none of that medium is going to escape into the tower. This is almost ready to plant out. These are beautiful red cos lettuces, and they're almost the right size. You could probably put them in now. They would be a pretty good one to plant. Again, checking the roots, we've got beautiful root netting around the medium, so they are pretty good to put in. And if I had a spare tower, I'd definitely fill it up with these. So we're going to check the EC and the pH. So firstly with the EC, it's 2.4, which is just perfect. That's exactly where I like to keep it. And then the pH, I don't have a pH probe. I used to use one, but I got sick of calibrating. And I find that there's nothing better than just these drops. These drops are really, really good because they've got a very good color range. And using these drops, I'm able to test the pH. So just a couple of drops in there. And based on that color, I've got a pH of 5.5, which is good. It could be a little higher. That's okay. But 5.5 is a really good pH. So this tower is going to do really, really well once fully stocked. I'll expect to harvest these lettuces in the middle of winter. We're 7 days since the winter solstice. I expect to harvest these lettuces within 3 to 4 weeks. So we've started planting out our towers, and here we are. The best way to do it, again, just push them from the bottom, release the little cube, and then put the tube in the tower. I like to be a little bit artistic, and you can see I'm putting a bit of a pattern through here. So we're going to have one variety in the top 2 rows, then the next variety on the bottom 2 rows here, and that way we're going to have a nice kind of artistic crop, if you like, and it really does look visually appealing to the eye, which is super important because these are really works of art, these towers, and you know, when they're fully stocked, they look absolutely spectacular, especially if they're planted out in this way. So as you can see here in this little farm, we've got 9 towers, different varieties of lettuces and some Asian greens. And you know, we've got some pretty hungry people on the properties here that we live in, and they all come and pick lettuce quite regularly. So there's quite a few gaps, you know, no matter how many times you tell your friends on the property, they never ever restock it. So I like to go and find the holes and just stick another seedling in there, and that's going to grow a little older. So here's some cos lettuces that are a few weeks old now. Behind me is another one, and here's a mixture of frizzy lettuces that I've got here. These are all Rix 1 varieties, and you can see after about a week they're starting to really develop. And you can see here that, you know, once they're really developed, you get the good root system. You've got great, beautiful white roots here. These white roots here are a sign of really healthy environment in the hydroponic system. Here it's just a couple of weeks old, so we're not going to have as many roots, but you can see that the roots have started sort of taking shape here. And so hopefully from this video you've been able to learn a little bit about how to economically grow in these towers. Lettuces, Asian greens, leafy greens, herbs, they all grow very well in these. This is a pretty small farm of 9 towers. So with this 9 towers, we've got about 500 plants growing, and it's in a pretty small area. So this is a 4-metre grow tunnel, 4 metre wide, and we're using probably about 6 metres of the 4-metre tunnel, and we're able to get 500 little plants. It's a lot better than the tabletop varieties, in my view, because the tabletop hydroponic systems, they're a little bit more awkward to work around. I do though recommend that you need to go for the commercial ones, the ones that have the 6 per layer. The commercial ones encourage your lettuce to grow properly as opposed to just shoot upright like the smaller domestic towers, and they've got a much larger reservoir. That large reservoir, 100 litres, is going to ensure that my pH and nutrient levels stay relatively balanced. So thanks for joining me for this video, and subscribe or stick around. We'll have lots more growing at home, how to produce food 365 days of the week, so you can be self-sufficient and you can say goodbye to fresh produce at the supermarket that's travelled a long, long way to get to you. Thanks for joining.